Hello, everybody. Today, it's my pleasure to have Dr. Danny Takanishi in this YouTube series, Present to the Future Doctors. Danny had and has multiple roles in the University of Hawaii Department of Surgery and University of Hawaii School of Medicine itself, and also nationwide. and as a surgeon, critical care surgeon, and also educator and researcher. So he had multiple things he have been doing, so busy, but today I'm lucky to have you on this video series. Danny's career will be very helpful for the young people who is interested to become the surgeon, physician in the future. So I'm looking forward to hear your, whatever you talk today. And now it's all yours, so you can start your presentation.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say, Dr. Machi, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate it because you have done so much to continue to basically promulgate our collaboration with Japan. And you've done a lot for the goodwill and to help education, not only here at JABSOM, but also in Japan as well. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you again so much. It really is my honor to be here today. Without further ado, let me go ahead and share my slides with you.
Okay. This is a 162 YouTube series present to doctors to be in the future. Dr. Danny Takanishi, as you can see here, Danny has a multiple positions right now. And the catchphrase is the journey, the joy in the journey is finding purpose. So go ahead and you can start your self-introduction and furthermore.
Okay, so first of all, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I just wanted to say that purpose is such an important thing of what we always do. It keeps us engaged. It helps us to wake up every morning, being refreshed and looking forward to the day. And it really gets at something that we teach in the United States that has to do with wellness. And it's called Ikigai. Now, Ikigai has a lot of dimensions to it. But again, it's the concept of finding purpose in life, finding fulfillment in life. And I'm going to end on that note on my final slides. So first of all, I just wanted to say a bit about myself. And I think it's fair to say that when I was a young child, I grew up in a family where my father was an elementary school teacher. He taught in the 3rd grade. My mother was a homemaker. And I went through the public school system. So it wasn't as though we had a lot of resources, if you will. And so I went through different iterations of what I wanted to be. At one point, I thought I wanted to be a zookeeper. I love animals, but I guess what I didn't realize is I was very intrigued by biology early on. I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and in fact, I was born at the Queen's Medical Center, which is the same institution that I work at. And my family history basically is one that chronicles the immigrants. And so depending on which side of the family you look at, if you look at if you look at my paternal grandfather, he didn't come with the first wave of what we call the Kanyaku Imin. He came in the 2nd wave, but he was still Issei. So he still, during World War II, was in the internment camps. My paternal grandmother, on the other hand, she was actually somebody whose initial immigration occurred a few generations prior. So the first wave that came with the Kanyaku Imin. So if you look at my paternal grandmother's side, I am actually Yonsei. And my family, interestingly, I had the oldest uncle on my father's side was Kibe. So he was sent back to Hiroshima to be raised by family and then sent back to complete his education in Hawaii. There was another uncle who went to school there and actually went to Waseda University. So when World War II struck, he was stuck there and he actually served with the Imperial Army in Manchuria. And I still have a cousin that lives in Setagaya outside of Tokyo.
I see.
It's a very broad-based family. And it's interestingly, my grandfather was involved, had a little store in Kakaha, Kauai, and was very active in the Chamber of Commerce and actually received back then, I believe it was called the Order of the Rising Sun, fifth
Hmm.
class.
Oh,
But again, they never pushed me into going into business.
I see.
They just wanted me to find something that I was going to be happy in. But
Uh-huh.
initially, I thought I wanted to be a music major.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. So you can play some instrument?
I can, so I can play the clarinet and flute.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when it came time to go to college, my mother was a very smart lady. She never went to college, and but was a very smart lady. And she said, "Hey, look," she said, "you have to be practical. You're going to have a family, and you need to take care of your family.
Hmm.
And it's not just the Japanese way, that's the American way." And so I
Okay.
needed to major in something that I could have a steady income to take care of a family. And so I went to the University of Hawaii, like a lot of my public high school friends did. And I decided to go into medical technology. You know, they would have these little fairs at the beginning where students get to, during their freshman year of college, go and see what different types of occupations do. And so in medical technology, they worked in the hospital's laboratory, chemistry, hematology, blood bank, coagulation, microbiology. And so when I went to one of the fairs as a freshman, I thought, wow, this is really interesting. So
Hmm.
that's what I got my bachelor's degree in. And it required that I did an internship in the laboratory. So I did it at Kaiser Hospital in Honolulu, where it was, it no longer stands. This was so long ago. Now the Hawaii Prince Hotel in
Oh,
Waikiki sits on where that Kaiser Hospital used to be. That's how
really?
long ago it was. But like anything else in life, mentors play such a major role. And in this case, this is the first time that I came across mentors in the clinical laboratory in pathology who really pushed me. They felt that, I was always working hard, I was always reading, I was always interested in what I was doing. And I guess they took notice and they said, have you ever thought about going farther? And I guess I really hadn't. But again, they kept pushing me and prodding me, and I'll see them every day. So what happened is when I was done with my internship and I got my license and I was working in the chemistry department, I worked in the evening. And during the day, I took prerequisite courses so that I could
Hmm.
take my medical college admissions test. And then after 1 year of working, I applied for my medical school class at the John Burns School of Medicine. So there was nothing really unusual other than coming across great mentors that always pushed me and pushed me to aspire to greater heights, if you will.
So which this year is like 60 years for the medical school, right? Which year are
Yes,
you?
1987. So not quite the first year.
1987. I see, I see. Long time ago.
Correct, correct. Yeah.
40 some years
So
ago. Okay.
So 1987. And so when I graduated, it was interesting because I really loved pediatrics. I loved internal medicine, and I also loved surgery. And they're all very different. And I think what it was I loved the challenges that they had. I loved a lot of the new knowledge that was going on. I remember in 1985, Carrie Mullis, reported on PCR. Subsequently, he won the Nobel Prize for that. But then the explosion in molecular biology started. So we began accruing data across the world, getting a better sense of what were some of the underlying genetic underpinnings of many diseases, and cancer included. And my thought was, I was always fascinated by cancer. And in fact, because My father had a parathyroid adenoma. My mother had uterine carcinoma. My sister had breast cancer. And they all lived to a good old age. But nonetheless, it made me really fascinated with tumor genesis. And so I thought if I went into pediatrics, I'd be a pediatric oncologist. If I went into internal medicine, I would be a medical oncologist. And if I went into surgery, I would be a surgical oncologist. So it was a hard decision, but literally I applied to a number of different programs back then. And when it came time to certify what we call our rank order list through the National Resident Matching Program, I put surgery at the top. And the rest, as you can see here, is history. And so I went to a general surgery residency here in Honolulu, Hawaii. And then I followed that with a year of a surgical critical care fellowship, because also interested in critical care, because again, there was a lot of information that was starting to accrue. We were getting to understand sepsis much better and all the cytokine responses, if you will, and better modes of treatment and new drug development. And then I went off to do my surgical oncology fellowship at the University of Chicago.
See.
And
Oh, it's a University of Chicago. I see. That's right. I had a initial training or research at the University of Illinois.
oh, that's
long,
right. That's
a
right.
long
That's
time
right.
ago. But so it was close. But it's a different time. But I see. Okay.
Well, I think that I do remember that when I came across individuals at the University of Chicago, they had already known you because by then you had established yourself
I
as an
don't know. But
international expert with ultrasound.
that's right.
And so a number of the senior leaders there, such as Dr. Robert Baker, for example, would actually mention you by name.
Right, Dr. Baker. Yeah, I remember.
So, so again, it was one of these things that it was sort of a nice sort of a beacon, a nice star, because again, there was somebody, not to make you feel uncomfortable in this conversation, but there was somebody like you who was a trailblazer that other people at the national level knew of, because at that point you were also considered the guru, if you will, for the American College of Surgeons national ultrasound faculty. So there was a lot that you had pioneered already, and of course you had your MD, PhD. So these are all things that the mosaic of mentors that started building at the University of Chicago really pushed me to saying, hey, and Dr. Machi publishes very avidly, even in Honolulu, and he's well respected in the American College of Surgeons. So you could do the same thing. And so throughout my fellowship, and then they hired me as a junior attending as an assistant professor. What happened was I made the decision to pursue academic medicine.
I see.
And it was the very first time that I had ever presented a paper. And I remember my surgical oncology program director made me rehearse many, many, many times. It was to the point that I could say it from memory. And but again, those things are so important to have that kind of mentorship where they make you work hard. You're so prepared that even if you're nervous, you come out okay. And each one of those events is empowering for the next event. And that's sort of what happened. And so the interest sort of took hold. And again, this was finding, and I guess mentors being there and noticing your hard work, noticing your diligence, noticing your quest for knowledge, and always wanting to do the right thing with patient care. And so I think that worked in my favor, if you will. And then, so the path in academic medicine really, for those who view this webcast really has to do with four main areas. So the first thing is, of course, is to spend your first 2 years or so establishing clinical excellence in patient care, because that's the reason why we all go into medicine to begin with. We want to do for others. We want to make others better. We want to, if we can't cure them, we want to create a better quality of life. We want to provide palliation, if you will. And of course, we want to make sure that even at end of life, we make sure that their transition to their next phase, if you will, is one that is attended by dignity and comfort. So clinical excellence in patient care is important, and it's continually important throughout one's career. And of course, there's many opportunities for teaching and education, and that's another area that's really important in academic medicine. It's like the four cornerstones of a building, a home, whatever it be. And so teaching and education was the other piece. And there's courses that one can go to, as well as watching some of the senior individuals, like, for example, watching you, Dr. Machi, teaching ultrasound to interns and to more senior level individuals. Again, these are the types of things that when one is coming up through the ranks, if you will, this type of both experience as well as sort of the textbook piece, because there are things that are published about educational methods and pedagogy. These are things that really help to build the foundation that we can continue to build on so that we can continue to enhance our teaching skills. And then research and scholarship is very important. And so this is one thing, my areas were probably in surgical oncology and in surgical critical care, but this is also important, getting out there, presenting at your specialty conferences, Society of Surgical Oncology, the American College of Surgeons, educational conferences. This is very important for not only the visibility of your institution that you are with, but also for people to know that, oh, wait, you're doing something that they're interested in. So they may want to collaborate with you. And so you sort of build your network, and that network continues to grow, and then it opens the doors to other opportunities. And then, of course, professional service is very important. If opportunities come forward, if your mentors say, hey, there's this opportunity to serve on a specific committee, again, if it's aligned with your goals in your specialty discipline. In my case, I was interested in three areas: surgical oncology, surgical critical care, and in education. Then I made it a point to at least open those doors to look at what the potential opportunities are. And if I felt it was aligned with my goals, then I pursued them. And ultimately, then I went up through the ranks and became a tenured full professor.
I see. What is these pictures shows? The three pictures.
picture,
The one on the right side is like SES, but what other picture? Is that the University of Chicago?
Yeah, no, so the lower, so on the opposite side of a panel that I served on with the American College of Surgeons, that's actually the board for the
Oh, I
National
see.
Board of Medical Examiners.
Mhm.
And so this was just at the point where the coronavirus pandemic was sort of, relenting, if you will. And so they started to lift the travel restrictions. But as you can see, this is still a hybrid meeting. So two of the board members were not able to
I see.
attend. And what they normally would do is after every one of our meetings, they'd take a picture of the board members. And in this case, like I said, two of them were remote. And so this is how that picture was taken. So I'm actually here right in the back portion.
I see.
And this is the president and CEO of the National Board of Medical Examiners, and these are other board members here.
So National Board of Medical Examiner is basically is an organization for mostly for the student, right? I mean, for the education of the student, or
Yes, so
or board
they
examination.
so they create national examinations or assessments primarily for medical students. So for example, in United States education, what happens is after all of the core clerkships, internal medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry, general surgery, family medicine, for example, geriatrics, emergency medicine, they create national standardized exams that almost every accredited medical school uses as one means to determine if students have acquired the medical knowledge necessary to go on to the next clerkship.
So that's a
They
USLME.
also, correct, and they also, along with another entity called the Federation of State Medical Boards, have created a program called the United States Medical Licensing Examination, or USMLE program. And so the NBME also has some of that oversight along with the Federation of State Medical Boards for the USMLE program. But they also create exams for veterinarians, for nursing, and they create some international examinations that are particularly used in parts of Europe as well as in parts of Latin America.
Okay.
Then the central piece is Asan Medical Center in Seoul. And so in 2020, right before they identified the first case of coronavirus in South Korea, I was actually a visiting professor there for their Korean Surgical Association. It was a surgical critical care conference. And so I was fortunate enough to have been invited to be the keynote speaker at the conference, and it was held at the Asan Medical Center here. Here's the complex that you can see here. There were at least 6 large buildings. And so essentially I was there literally the day I left in January 2020 was when South Korea had identified their first case of the coronavirus. So it was very memorable, not only because I had the opportunity, fortunately, to speak there, but I also got out in time so that I didn't run into potential issues coming back to Honolulu because of the fact that the coronavirus was starting to spread in Asia then. And then as time progressed, what happened is, and again, this has to do with having mentors that support you, that encourage you. And, you know, Professor Machi, you know this because you were already here when I came back from the University of Chicago. But I think what happened was the environment here provided a lot of opportunities also. So I've been fortunate enough to, partake in a number of roles at JABSOM that were extended to me. Such as being the residency program director for 13 years, the department chair of surgery for 11. And then there was a transition with the deans. And so I did serve about 1.5 years in the role of an interim associate dean for academic affairs to assist the school as we started preparing for our accreditation survey that occurred in January of this past year. Also, as you can see, I've served in roles with our Surgical Critical Care Fellowship. And of course, a lot of what we do is duties is assigned. So the dean has asked if I would serve as the interim department chair for Communication Sciences and Disorders, where speech language pathology and audiology programs are housed until administratively they're able to appoint a department chair. And of course, for the last 1.5 years, I've been serving in the role as the director of the Office of Student Affairs. So I feel very fortunate. There have been a lot of individuals like yourself, Professor Machi, who's really been instrumental in supporting me. And I think that's critically important for the teens aspiring to go into medicine, medical students, even junior faculty members. It's always important to surround yourself with this mosaic of mentors who really help to support you, and they provide the scaffolding so that you can achieve all of the things that you never thought you could achieve. But the key piece is you have to open that door, and you have to always answer when opportunity is knocking on that door. You never know. And again, you're not going to take on everything because you don't want to overload yourself either. You want to do what you do well. And so you have to, again, always make sure that it's aligned with what your personal and professional goals are. And in this case, it just so happened that these things here were certainly aligned with that.
I think when I was here, you came back from Chicago, but initially you mainly worked for the Department of Surgery, but quickly moved up to the position to like a school JABSOM level, and now nationwide. So it's a really surprise. It must be a lot of effort you have to do, but we are very glad you moved on. Over the last maybe 20, 30 years.
But to be honest, it's because of people like you that that we surround ourselves with that help us to be very successful. And so I think it goes without saying that all of these things that you're doing for collaboration and goodwill between Japan and the Johnny Burns School of Medicine, things you did, for example, when you're president of the Noguchi Foundation, which is a very important entity among many, many important entities in the nation of Japan. All of these things are so important because this type of collaboration really helps all sides to really start to grow and to excel. So I do have to commend you. You're very humble, but it's because of people like you that we can do all the things that we like to do. And
Good.
I have to say that it's been wonderful, working with our student body. As you know, our student body, roughly about 78 students per year. So we have a little bit over 300 students. And so it's been a wonderful opportunity now reversing the roles and serving as a mentor to help others to achieve their own personal and professional goals. And I think that, again, there's so much hope for the future, a lot of bright minds, a lot of energy, a lot of, brilliant critical thinkers, I think, that are coming out on the horizon.
That's good. Yeah, when you came back 1980, the number of the students is only 55 or something, right?
It was about 62 or
60.
so.
I see, I see.
So it's increased. And
Almost
the dean,
almost 80 now? 75?
yeah, it's 78 a year. And the dean would like to continue to expand that to our neighboring islands and to continue to increase the class size.
I see.
Mhm.
So this
And
picture shows some relation with my Japanese colleague too.
It is, and I would point out to the audience that you notice that in every one of these pictures, there is Professor Machi in there, because these things did not happen by chance. These things happen because of your goodwill, your energy, Dr. Machi, your vision, your mission to improve education, not just only at the Johnny Burns School of Medicine, but in Japan. And as you can see, it's been a wonderful opportunity. I've met people that I would not have otherwise been able to meet because you've been such a wonderful bridge. And I think that meeting all of these individuals, I think it's very clear, not only the team from Okinawa Chubu
Right.
Hospital, which has been a sibling institution for many, many, many years, but from a lot
Actually,
of this,
it is almost like 60 years now,
but
same as
but there's
JABSOM.
so many others that I wouldn't be able to name them all because it's just grown in your role overseeing the JABSOM Office of Global and International Medicine. And again, I think that this collaboration has been one that really adds to the richness of the experience at the school. But more importantly, these all provide sites where our medical students, because of memorandums of understanding, have the opportunity to go and also rotate at these sites where you've developed these collaboratives that actually really help to open the eyes of our own medical students. And they have the chance to see how healthcare is done in other areas. And certainly, whenever I visit Japan, I'm never worried about getting sick because I know that the healthcare I'll get in Japan is going to be second to none. And again, I think that what this really is this is continuing again to enhance what is already excellent. And so again, I think
Yeah.
I do want to say that with much appreciation to you, Professor Machi, for these
Actually, that is
opportunities and
actually my
bridging.
purpose. You said initially slide, you said finding a purpose, but that's one of my purposes.
Mhm. And so again, these are just some wonderful experiences, and these are not all the photos. I have many more photos, and of course,
That's why we took many
to the
pictures, right?
audience, to the audience listening to this, Professor Machi is in every single one because he has been the bridge. So I think the other piece that we sort of touched on earlier was that along with sort of the local professional growth was the national trajectory. And I think that, again, the hard work, developing your skills as an educator, as a scholar in the areas of your interest, making sure you present, you go to your conferences, you make sure that when opportunity knocks, you open that door. I've been very fortunate because there have been a lot of opportunities that I've been able to participate in because of that. So not just the National Board of Medical Examiners and the United States Medical Licensing Program, where I've had the opportunity to serve on a number of their governance boards that oversees the whole process, but also with major committees, particularly the Commission on Cancer, serving on their executive committee and chairing their accreditation standing committee under the aegis of the American College of Surgeons, but also serving in a number of roles for over 13 years with the ACGME, or the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, serving as the vice chair, for example, of the Surgery Residency Review Committee, chair of the Transitional Residency Review Committee, serving on a number of milestones committees. So this has been the wonderful opportunity where doors have opened again because of the wonderful mentorship that I was able to be fortunate enough to come across. And currently, I serve as an oral examiner for the American Board of Surgery. Been doing that for about the last 7 or 8 years. And probably what I would consider the capstone of my academic career is being one of the professional members of something called the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, which is the entity that's basically given the delegated authority by the United States Department of Education to accredit and set the standards for all MD granting medical schools in the United States and its territories. So it's been a wonderful journey thus far. So some of the major changes that I've seen, and I don't think it's going to stop here, is the residency duty hours restriction. There was a lot of consternation and angst when they said residents can't work more than 80 hours. They cannot be on call in the hospital no more than every third day. When they're post-call, after 24 hours, they can stay 4 more hours, but then they got to leave. And those 4 hours, they can only participate in the care of maybe one patient, for example, and they must turn over all their other patients to other members of the team. So it seemed very strict. And what happened was, as time went on, and they've done more and more studies now, it's actually been found that this hasn't compromised patient safety, which is good. And then, of course, hand in hand was really looking at competency-based medical education. While we still use the global evaluation forms based on observation, these are things such as the entrustable professional activities, the EPAs that the American Board of Surgery has started to implement, that really starts to add a sense of more objectivity in making decisions for promotion and advancement in residency training. And of course, health system science is considered the third pillar. Besides the basic science and the clinical science, the health system science really has to do with looking at how healthcare is actually structured, how it's delivered, looking at policy, economics, informatics, for example, and technology, and really looking at something we call value-based care and population health, and also leadership, advocacy, and change that needs to occur in order to deliver the best high-quality care. So this is something new now that's been permeating all medical schools nationally here, and because healthcare has become so much more complex, both in terms of the economics and because of some of the policies that are there. And without going into some of the challenges occurring in our own nation with the shutdown that's occurring, this is a very, very important area. And of course, innovation is the other piece that has arisen. Things like integrating simulation technology, integrating use of telehealth strategies. And in fact, for an island archipelago or an archipelago that we have in Hawaii, we actually do depend on telehealth, particularly since patients on the neighboring islands can't always fly here. And sometimes before they come to our level 1 trauma center here at Queens, what happens is we do use telehealth mechanisms for a lot of the neighboring islands to stabilize the patients, working with the emergency medicine physicians on the neighboring islands to stabilize the patients before they are flown over here for higher level care. So innovative technology has grown, and of course, this also includes things like artificial intelligence. But certainly, I think one of the things that the pandemic also brought to the national forefront was to accelerate medical education programs. So in the United States, most medical schools are 4 years in length. And with the pandemic, the push was to get more of the students out into the workforce sooner. So in some cases, in collaboration with the Liaison Committee on Medical Education and the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, there are some schools that have been approved to have 3 years of medical school, so long as they meet all of the educational program objectives for graduation. And then they enter into residency a year early, and so they leave residency a year early. So now that that's been in place since the pandemic, and there's data to support that, there does not seem to be difference in competency of graduates from residency programs that take this accelerated type program of 3 years of medical school, that now more and more, many schools are also looking at transitioning at least some of their classes to have the opportunity to take advantage of these types of accelerated programs. So I think there's more to come, but certainly these are some of the things that I've seen over the time I've been involved in medical education.
This residency duty hour regulation is a big issue in Japan. In the United States, this was introduced about 20 years ago, right? Maybe ACGME.
Yes,
But
correct.
in Japan now is a big issue, and they are trying to follow the way United States have been doing to restrict the duty hour regulation, and it's a big problem. I mean, some difficulties going on in Japan, but I think they are trying to follow the method in the United States. So these changes in the medical education, of course, usually United States go first, and then oftentimes Japan follow this the same way.
Well, the good thing is there was a first and a second trial, is what it was called in the United States. So there's data to actually support that going this route. They made the changes first because Congress was going to implement duty hour changes. So there was some concern on the part of the certain medical educators that if Congress dictated by law that that wouldn't be good, that the physicians should do what we call self-regulate. So the ACGME went and convened a whole duty hour Congress back in 2008, and then reaffirmed the duty hour restrictions. And then there were 2 trials, the first and the second trial. Now there's a third trial. But the first 2 trials basically reaffirmed with the data that resident and fellow well-being increased and patient safety was not compromised. So they felt that this was scientific proof that the duty hour restrictions actually were a good thing, both for patient safety, quality care, and for resident and fellow well-being. So, so hopefully Japan finds the same thing.
Hope to.
So as I was saying, there's a number of challenges, and this list is not at all complete. And these are not necessarily in order. And so we're really looking forward to mentoring the next generation, because it will be left to the next generation to help to continue to solve some of these challenges. Artificial intelligence is there at the top of the list. And what happens is we need to determine what's the most ethical and appropriate way to use it. Because as we all know, there's been an explosion of what we call machine learning, right? It takes, when we look at evidence-based medicine, for example, we look at data, we look at statistics, and then based on how the statistics is used to analyze that data. That input is used by us to make certain decisions. Now, on the other hand, artificial intelligence can actually take very complex medical disorders that don't lend itself well to a best fit curve or a linear regression. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, can actually take the whole complex milieu, if you will, and distill it down into things that are much more understandable to us. The other piece is these systems can continue to learn with added inputs. So it really transcends the ability of statistics, if you will. So while it can revolutionize some approaches to medicine, of course, one of the pieces that's always of concern is it doesn't have the empathy and compassion that the human has. So I think everybody agrees it's not going to replace that. But again, the question really comes into play, how then will artificial intelligence be used and integrated into medical practice? And I think there's a sense that it has a place. We just have to figure out where that is. And of course, even in the medical education realm, artificial intelligence can create massive numbers of test questions, much faster than humans can do. And it's been found that with the same degree of reliability and validity when they actually test those questions out, artificial intelligence can write essays. Artificial intelligence can do a lot of things. And they're evaluating it now in areas like admissions, for example, to see if there's a better way to determine which candidates for admission to medical school are the ones that are probably going to be the most successful. So there's a lot of research that's going on, both in the clinical part of medicine, but also in the medical education part of medicine. And of course, with artificial intelligence also comes robots. And we do know that artificial intelligence existed for a very long time. And robots, for example, can do a lot of things, even simple things. Flying back from Chicago on the weekend, for example, and being in a lounge where they actually have something that comes through and actually has you put the dishes on them. And if somebody walks in the way, it stops. And then when the person passes, it continues to go. Or we have these things that actually clean the floors. So that's sort of a form. They're robots, but they're a form of artificial intelligence because they're not humanoid. So it's really here to stay. But in medicine, particularly with machine learning and the ability to use big data sets, it'll be very important that we look carefully at how this is going to be ethically utilized. Cybersecurity. More and more, this tends to be an existential threat. It's been over the internet many, many times that medical centers are basically come to a standstill because of ransomware attacks on the electronic medical record. And so again, we do know that there are gaps, if you will, and so again, cybersecurity would be very important because again, it's important to protect patient information, for example, and other confidential information. Of course, workforce. We don't seem to be keeping up with the pace of individuals, the population growth, the growth of the elderly with more complex diseases. So it'd be important to have a strong workforce. And this is where maybe artificial intelligence will make it much more efficient for the physicians in order to do their jobs. But again, all of this is still up in the air, but certainly things that are now being looked at and will continue to need to be tackled. And of course, research, not only here in our own nation where funding has been cut to the National Institutes of Health, but certainly continuing to nurture the group of individuals who will continue to do cutting edge research that's going to help us not just with drug development, but technological development and improvements, along with maybe integrating artificial intelligence to improve the quality of care. And of course, it's been all over the radar screen. The pandemic catapulted it to a higher level, but well-being and burnout is also very important. And this is where determining purpose and finding what makes you happy and keeps you engaged is very important as one of the things to combat burnout and well-being. Because again, purpose is very important, but balance is also part of it as well. And so those are the things that are individualized, but we as medical educators will need to make sure that we actually teach our students at a very young and formative stage of their careers how to create this balance and how to continue to find meaning and purpose in their life. Then, of course, rising healthcare costs. One of the things here in the United States that's been a sticking point, particularly with healthcare subsidies between our two parties in Congress. But it's not just rising costs of healthcare, it's rising costs for somebody to go through medical school and an undergraduate program before that. The debt in the United States is increasing. And so again, we have to better control some of these costs to make sure that we can have more physicians come out at the other end of things. And of course, then there's the global environmental piece. Climate change, we've seen that it's having profound effects on the environment, as well as on diseases and disorders, not just pollutants, for example, and things related to pulmonary disorders, but certainly there's other things that have occurred that have shifted the ecological balance and the ecosystem that is in part responsible for some of the emerging infectious diseases. And of course, there's always concern that the coronavirus pandemic that occurred might actually occur in a different form because there's other diseases and disorders that are emerging. And for example, very recently, there have been reports of Yersinia pestis, the etiologic agent of the bubonic plague in parts of the United States, as well as the trypanosoma that causes Chagas disease in other parts of the United States as one example. But these types of emerging infectious diseases are occurring, or older diseases that we thought were basically eradicated because of vaccination programs and herd immunity. We're seeing that these types of infectious diseases are now rearing themselves again. So there are many challenges for the future generation of physicians and scientists going into the
And
future.
a new field, but medical education needs to focus on these areas. So it's getting much more wider, things we have to teach and learn.
Yeah, that is true. And so the dream, I would personally love to continue to see some of the innovation in medical education, the ongoing growth of competency-based medical education. So individuals' journey through medical school or to residency and fellowship is not time-based. You finish 1 year, you go to the next year, you go to the next year. But really it's competency-based. So some may need longer periods of time, some may need shorter periods of time, but essentially the educational program moves with the learner, and it's not one that forces them to move at each year when we do know that individuals learn different things at different paces. So clearly, ongoing innovation in medical education will be important, especially since learner styles change generationally. A healthy workforce is also very important, addressing wellness, addressing burnout, making sure we have the right balance, making sure we have the right efficiencies in healthcare delivery. They all interplay or intertwine with each other. This is where maybe AI might be a benefit going forward in the future. Collaboratives, like some of the things you're doing, Professor Machi, between the Johnny Burns School of Medicine and many of the institutions in Japan. These things are very important because collaboration, if done the right way, benefits everybody. And of course, to continue to move medicine, cutting edge research and scholarship is very, very important. And the challenges in our busy days, it's not always easy to do that. And I will say, again, I know this is a conversation between the two of us, but Professor Machi, you have a legacy. All the residents know, all the Kuakini attendings know, many of us know. that you would have a full clinic or OR day, and you'd be working on your research and your manuscripts after midnight every night. And then, of course, you'd have to be up again in the wee hours of the morning the next day to get ready for your full patient care related activities. So
Same,
again,
same for you too, I think.
so cutting edge research is really important, and it takes a degree of devotion and dedication. But again, my dream and hope is that individuals who select and choose this path, it was never meant to be easy, because at the end of the path, there's always a patient sitting in front of us. But again, to pick this noble path, it's so important to make sure that we have this devotion and commitment that's going to continue to advance medicine in a way that's going to care for all people and not discriminate.
I see. And you show many pictures of Japan over there. And then I'm sure one of the dream is go to Japan more frequently to visit your, the place you really like. Today, you didn't mention much about your knowledge about Japan, geography or history, but probably, you know much better than me about Japan in many aspects.
Well, I can tell you that all the pictures I have here, except the photos of the students and of our Japanese neighbors and friends that I showed earlier, all the other photos of Japan were ones that I took myself. So
I
of
see.
course,
Oh,
this is
great.
in Kyoto, Kinkakuji, known because of the support from the Ashikaga shogunate. And then this, of course, is in Hakone. This is not Hakone Jinja, but this is the one that actually the kami is the Ryujin sama. And this is in Kamakura, the
鎌倉や
Hotokune,
大仏さんね。
right? Hi, it's one of the major, daibutsu,
うん。
in addition to the one everybody knows at Todaiji in Nara. And then in Fukuoka, this is known as, you can see here, the red maple. This is Momiji Hachimangu.
Oh, I didn't know.
And then, of course, this is the Sakura, which is always a beautiful season. And then this is Fushimi Inari Taisha, also in the Fushimi district of Kyoto.
I
And so
see.
these are all pictures that I've taken over the years
Great.
that I've traveled to Japan.
Good.
So my closing thoughts is, for the generations that are going to come forward is, there's a saying, I'm not sure who made the saying up, but a winner is not one who never fails, but a winner is one who never gives up. And I think that that's so important when you select this journey in medicine, because it's not meant to be easy. Certainly, even if, I might have made it sound like it's a lot of fun. It is, but there's a lot of sweat. There's times for tears. There's times of exhaustion, particularly when you're going to medical school and residency and fellowship. But again, there's always the light that always calls you, because what happens is it's such a fulfilling field. It is one that gives so much sense of purpose. You're helping other people. There's so much new knowledge that's waiting to be created. And so really, it's aspiring, it's always working hard, and it's believing in yourself. And rounding the whole thing out is always finding joy in your journey in what you do. And Ikigai is in many respects, some will say it's a very complex concept, but Ikigai has everything to do with finding purpose, finding belonging, and basically that's the essence of enjoying what you do because you have purpose. And so that's very important. And like they have in the Dotonbori, very, very famous sign, it's sort of the same principle that you work hard, you give it all that you got, you never give up. And in this case, my interpretation of this photo is that you don't see the finish line. It's almost as though the photo makes it seem that the person looking at this photo is the finish line, but you never see where the finish line is. And in medicine, that's exactly what happens. The finish line keeps moving, the closer you get to it, because again, the idea is that we have to continue to work hard and aspire and believe with the balance of Ikigai to continue to advance something that really has no terminus. It's one of these things that's just very expansive, but certainly at the end of the day, it's one that has a lot of rewards. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you to all those listening to this podcast.
Thank you very much. Danny, thank you very much. You are probably about 10 years younger than me, but sounds like you and I did a kind of a similar path in a career and in a different way, but you became an academician and then now is a leader in many areas. I'm really proud of you, and I want you to continue your Ikigai and then moving on in the future. Anything else you like to say at the last word?
No, I think that one thing again, I do want to say, Professor Machi, thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts, because I think that a lot of what occurs in medical education can always benefit from other ideas, from an expanded network, for more collaboration among individuals with like mind, like heart. And the thing is, not just because I'm a sansei or yonsei, but from what I've seen, even spending time at Okinawa Chubu Hospital, is that there's a lot of wonderful things going on, not only in the clinical realm, but some of the research I see coming out of Japan. And as you know, a prior graduate from our residency program, Dr. Hideko Yamauchi, spent time, also from your alma mater, I believe, Juntendo University, but spent a lot of time really building up some nice breast cancer programs, along with her husband, who is a medical oncologist in Japan, before Dr. Ueno recruited them back here to our cancer center. But again, this type of sharing of information, this type of collaboration really, I think, helps to expand our lens and our views, not only at JABSOM, but also in Japan. And I think this type of collaboration is a very, very good thing. And I do want to thank you for being a wonderful bridge to the thought leaders and the critical thinkers in the wonderful nation of Japan.
Okay, thank you very much. And these days, I don't see you face to face, but hopefully next time I see you, and we continue our shaka sign and then moving on. And hopefully you have more Ikigai in the future, and that may be helpful for the young generation, I think. So thank you very much, Danny.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Take care, bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.